Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm Brianne and I post mystery videos on Mondays and freaky videos on Fridays. So if you're into that kind of stuff, once you're done watching this video, please go check out the other videos on my channel. And I hope you had a great weekend, and now let's jump right into this video. Now, I'm not sure how long this case is going to be, as there wasn't a lot of information to go on in this particular case, but it is still a very, very interesting case and very, very sad. And this is the mysterious disappearance of a young woman by the name of Uniq Harris. Uniq was a 24-year-old mother of two young boys who loved her very, very much. She was very, very close with her mother, Valencia, and her grandfather, Richard. She was described as being a very, very family-oriented woman and was very, very close to her family and took the best care that she possibly could of her boys. Uniq and her two young boys had just moved to Washington, D.C. to be closer to Uniq's mother, Valencia, and the rest of her family. But the area in which Uniq and her boys had moved to was described as not a very, very good area, as there had been 100 or more murders in that area just that year. Valencia did not like the area in which Uniq and the two boys had moved into, and she was not comfortable with them living there, but she thought that it was best to let Uniq make her own decisions. And she also didn't think that it was a big deal, as it was only 5 minutes away from her home. So if the boys became ill or there was an emergency, she was very, very close to her daughter and could be over to her apartment in less than 5 minutes. Uniq knew about the high crime rate and all of the murders in this area, but she seemed unmoved by it. She was determined to make her living situation work, and she was only planning on staying there until she was done school. On the night of October 9th, 2010, Uniq had her younger cousin, Tayla, who was 9 years old, spending the night for a movie night and a sleepover with her two boys, who were 5 and 3 at the time. Sometime that evening, Richard, Uniq's grandfather, had phoned her to say goodnight, and he said that he could hear the popcorn popping in the background, and he'd even spoken to all 3 of the children. And he had said goodnight to Uniq and gotten off the phone. And he said that he would call her the next day and, see how everything went and whatever, and then he just went to bed. Following the movie, Uniq put the 3 children to bed in the room next to hers, where she would be sleeping. But when the 3 children had woken up the next morning, Uniq was not there. Now, at first they were not too concerned, and the children went about their days. But as the day progressed, Tayla got nervous and phoned her mother. And her mother said that she sounded quite panicked when she was saying that Uniq was not home. But her mother had assured her that Uniq had just stepped out. She thought that maybe Uniq had gone to the store or stepped out to run some errand and hadn't made it back yet. So nobody was too concerned at this point. But as the day progressed, Tayla's mom would call in to check on them every now and then, as she was across town and couldn't get to Uniq's house to check on the children until 3 o'clock. And when she did arrive at 3 o'clock and found that Uniq was still not there, this raised a lot of red flags for her. Upon discovering that Uniq was still not home, Tayla's mother had phoned Valencia and informed her that the children had been alone all day and she didn't know where Uniq was. Valencia had a foot injury at the time and could not drive, so upon hearing this information, she had called Richard, and he had rushed over to Uniq's home to pick up the 2 boys. Richard and Valencia were unconcerned, as the buses in that area were notorious for breaking down and being way off schedule, so they just assumed that Uniq got caught up with a bad bus schedule or something along those lines. So when Richard picked up the 2 boys, he'd taken them to Valencia's house. But as the hours and hours of time that Uniq had been missing grew longer and longer, they began to grow worried. And the family had actually been calling Uniq on and off all day, but she had never answered her cell phone. Later on that day, Richard had to return to Uniq's apartment to pick up a few things for the boys, and that's when he found some things were out of place. Uniq's purse was still slung over the chair as if it was before she usually went to bed, and inside her purse were all of her cards, all of her identification, and all of her money. And the most alarming thing that he had seen in the home when going back to pick up stuff for the boys was that Uniq's glasses were actually left sitting on her untouched bed. So her bed was still made from the night before, and her glasses were sitting on top of it. Now, in some cases this might not be so alarming, but Uniq actually only had 1 pair of glasses, and she was extremely blind and couldn't see 3 feet in front of her, so she never ever went anywhere without them. Worried by this, Richard had notified the police and also started looking around Uniq's apartment. And while looking around her apartment, he had noticed that the only things that were actually missing was her cell phone, her apartment key, and her key to her mother's house. The police had come over immediately and began to question the children, and this is where the information gets a little bit blurry. Now, some places say that Tayla had reported to the police that she had heard a man's voice in the house the night before, but she wasn't sure if it was coming from the TV or a neighbor. And some places say that all three of the children said that they heard absolutely nothing, and other places say that the boys had said that they had heard a commotion outside of their room. So that information is a little bit blurry, as you can't be absolutely positive about which one's true and which one is not. After investigating the home, police had discovered that there was no sign of forced entry, but foul play is believed to be involved. Unique's ex-boyfriend, the father of her 2 sons, was actually a suspect at first, but he had done a polygraph and passed with flying colors, and also had an airtight alibi in Richmond, Virginia, which I think is like 2 or 3 hours away from where Uniq had lived, so there was no possible way that he could have been in both places at once, so he was completely cleared of any involvement. Unique's current boyfriend at the time was also questioned, and he as well had an airtight alibi, as he was at a Job Corps program in West Virginia, so he wasn't even in town at the time either. Now, another part of this investigation that I think is key is that Unique's phone actually received a call on the morning of October 10th at 3 a.m. and it isn't clear if the police don't know who the caller was or if they just haven't released it to the public yet. Now, this is where things take a little bit of a turn and get a little bit more creepy. Valencia had told police that previously to Unique going missing, she had witnessed a murder in the park that was just outside of her apartment window. And I guess she had seen this murder take place in the park through her apartment window, and Unique had thought that this could possibly have something to do with her disappearance. And with that being said, that brings us to our first theory in this case. And that is that when Unique was watching the murder be committed outside of her window, whoever was committing the crime had actually seen her and had come back to keep her quiet. Now, I do think that this theory is believable, although I don't understand how they would get into her home without forced entry, as I'm pretty sure that a young woman who was a mother and who knew that she lived in a sketchy kind of area wouldn't open a door to a stranger in the middle of the night. And so that part just doesn't really add up to me, but it is definitely a possibility. And the next theory is that whoever had called Unique at 3 a.m. was calling her to lure her outside and then kidnap her. Now, this theory does make sense, although I don't understand why she would go outside without her glasses on when she couldn't see absolutely anything. So I just think in this case there is still a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of untied ends that don't make a lot of sense. In this case particularly, I have absolutely no idea what could have possibly happened to Unique. There are so many unanswered questions and so many things that just don't add up that I don't even have my own theory or my own thought on what could have possibly happened to this woman. This case is absolutely heartbreaking. It is so sad that 2 young boys are out there in the world right now going on without their mother and not knowing what happened to her or where she went. It is absolutely heartbreaking, and my heart goes out to the whole family, as I know they were all very close, and this case is just absolutely heart-wrenching. It is so sad and awful. But as this case isn't as old as some of the other cases on my channel that I have covered, I do think that there's a huge possibility that this case could get solved, and I really hope that is the case. And I hope that the whole family and all of her loved ones get some kind of closure as to what happened to this wonderful woman. And guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And once you're done watching this video, you can go check out the other videos on my channel, as I post Mondays and Fridays. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.